food prices. Okay. And I think it seems to be working in a way.
All right, let's switch gears now and talk about the IEBC. And Bashir, now that you're still on the floor, this is actually down your alley because it's about the judiciary. It will cost 971 million to get Kigame on the ballot. IEBC says it may be forced to postpone the elections if it has to include musician Ruben Kigame on the presidential ballot. Are we seeing a situation where the judiciary is almost insensitive to the goings-on in the country?
I think the judiciary has over time proven to be so reasonable. It's proven to be the only arm of government that is active, the only arm of government that has been doing its job. With respect to this particular outcome of that particular judicial process, let me mention that it's coming before the Court of Appeal this morning, and we shall have the necessary directions from the Court of Appeal. But in as far as that particular outcome from the High Court is concerned, what the Honorable Judge said is that presidential aspirant Ruben Kigame's papers and the signatures that he had submitted, whose rejection was based on his application on, that is the basis upon which his application was rejected, ought to be reconsidered. I think that is just a way of saying reconsider him and give him the opportunity to be on the ballot. But I think, I saw the letter from IEBC, you know, the chairperson has detailed a lot of reasons as to why it will be very hard and foolhardy to maybe put him in that particular list. I think what we need to be cautious about is if there are any outcomes of a judicial process, in as much as they may seem to be absurd, let us be a bit cautious enough not to disregard the orders of the Honorable Court. If I think the IEBC is not content with the outcome of that court, I think it will not be fair to say we are not respecting the outcome of that particular procedure. In fact, the judge said putting him on that particular, adding him on that ballot paper is up to the IEBC. That's what he said. So I think this is a very critical process whereby Kenyans have appreciated the litigious tradition of subjecting each and every issue to court. But the IEBC has given detailed reasons as to why it will be very difficult, economically and time-wise, to include someone on the ballot papers. But what I'm saying is, let us be cautious enough not to disregard the court orders. If IEBC is not content with this, they have exercised the necessary procedure by appealing against that particular judgment. And we hope to see the directions that will be issued by the Court of Appeal. It's a wait-and-see game, but, you know, we have only 18 days to the general election. IEBC, the courts are not taking up the roles of IEBC or what have you. The courts are only protecting the rights of the people of Kenya. Any party that is not content with that has, again, within the law, a necessary procedure to appeal against it, maybe to challenge that outcome.
So, Sian, what do you think? Are you
electoral justice is a key ingredient and right of citizens of Kenya. But I think the matter here, the actions by the judiciary should be on time. Because, yes, it should be on time. Because, you see, the date today is 21st of July. I want to presume that IEBC should be through with the printing of ballot papers. Now, if a judgment is coming today on 20th, and a matter that was filed in reasonable time, and the judgment is rendered on 20th, when ballot papers have been printed, then what we are suggesting is that you go back and print ballot papers afresh. Are we suggesting that we are going to postpone the general elections of 9th of August? While electoral justice is a right, the judiciary must deliver their determinations on time so that institutions that are vested with the responsibilities of undertaking such programs like IEBC are not inconvenienced. Because practically speaking, ballot papers are not printed in Kenya. It's public knowledge. They are printed elsewhere, outside the country. And it's also very costly. And political parties and interested parties are also expected to go and inspect. And those ballot papers must be delivered on time and distributed to the networks across the country so to facilitate elections on 9th of August. So I think that there should be no mismatch of delivering judgments at the wrong time. And that's why as Kenya Kwanza, we are saying we are going to support the judiciary and revamp the judiciary fund so that they're able to work on these programs promptly and early enough so that justice is rendered on time and governance can be executed smoothly and seamlessly. So what we are seeing here is a conflict between the timing of the judgment from the judiciary and also the programs that have been undertaken by IEBC. Okay. And I don't think we are going to run the risk to tell Kenyans that we are postponing the elections on 9th of August because we have got to print the ballot papers afresh since some candidates have been admitted after rulings of the Supreme Court. So I think I see the constraint of IEBC, and I see where it comes from. As a great user of the judiciary, the delivery of this judgment so late is causing a lot of inconvenience.
Okay, Bashir, I'll come to you for response, but let me hear what Kibrit has to say about this. Are you confident that IEBC will carry out a free, fair, and credible election with all these obstacles that is coming their way?
In fact, the most important thing is what are the lessons learned? From February this year, almost every decision, whether by IEBC or even by Parliament, was almost you are running almost a time crisis. And even subsequent decisions by the courts, they have also been running almost at the risk of, almost at the tail end of what is allowable time. My take is for the future, because now where we are is that is the decision of IEBC either to carry on with the elections or not. But in future, what we should be doing is first, the rules of the game must be instituted 1 year before the election. Because you see, even up to March, Parliament was still grappling with some issues of regulations and decisions, and even IEBC was issuing new rules and almost making this election less political but more technical, such that if you are a candidate and you don't want to run the risk of being disqualified, you need a lawyer on your side. Because to be reading and interpreting what it means. That's why there were 261 people who were almost disqualified because either they did not resign on time, 166 did not resign on time, the 9th of February, which was time allowed. Others had certain technical issues, let alone the issue of lack of university education. Now, what does it mean? As Kenyans, we think about the future. Whether it is Kenya Kwanza or Azimio, we must think about the future. Now, coming to your specific question about this issue of whether IEBC is going to put our good friend Kigame into the ballot, I think it is not tenable at this time. And I think the higher courts will pronounce itself, and I'm sure IEBC will still have a chance to go to Supreme Court.
Okay. And Bashir, you know,
and when they go to Supreme Court, it will be time barred. Okay. It will be a good decision, but overtaken by time.
Okay. Bashir, the timing is not so much off because this petition was filed on the 6th of June, just after IEBC had rejected Kigame's application. But still, does it affect the entire process in one way or another? In fact, at the end of it all, if everything goes according to plan, on the 9th of August, everybody goes to the polls, can someone come and say that someone was left out, therefore this presidential election is null and void?
You see, Trevor, if the reason as to why, firstly, this is causing a lot of jitters, it's because it's affecting the presidential election. It is set to affect the presidential election because the presidential election is an exercise that shall be taking place in the entire country. If it was something that would be affecting a governor or a senator, that would have been confined to a county and it would not have caused all those uproars. The reason as to why we are having this kind of scenario is each and every Kenyan has his or her own rights. You can petition the High Court even hours to the general election. The matter of the right of one Kenyan is so crucial to the courts of law. IEBC in the event or any other body is not content with an outcome of a judicial process, equally there's an appellate structure, and I think that is the price of democracy. That is now what the IEBC is trying to exercise in this instance. And Trevor, let me mention this, that the courts of law are now grappling with so many cases that are affecting, that are about petitions that affect the individuals who are keen on contesting various elections. Like the county I come from, Garissa has 2 petitions pending before the High Court, and a judgment is due today. But what courts did is, courts had to suspend the other things to focus on those petitions. I think courts are being realistic with respect to the times within which these petitions are filed. You cannot control Kenyans. You know, you cannot tell me as a Kenyan, don't file this petition 14 days to the general election, because some good critical information and evidence may come to my attention just hours to the general election. And I think in one of the very good judgments that has been rendered by Judge Abida Aroni, who I saw has been elevated to the position of an appellate court judge, she said, if we give the question of timelines, we may run a risk of having a non-citizen slipping through the fingers of IEBC to become the president of our country. Yeah. And I think the courts are so alive to the rights of everybody, including Kigame, myself, and everyone else. Okay. The question on whether or not IEBC, if IEBC disregards a valid court order, it will be an issue of consideration in the event of a presidential petition. You know, election is a process. The presidential election is a process. It's a legal process. It will be starting from a certain time up to a certain time. It will be a culmination of the final announcement of a declaration of a winner at the end of the day. So we shall ask ourselves, how were the steps from the word go? Yeah. Was it a clean process? Was the process neat? Yeah. Was the rule of law being upheld? Were the rights of each and every person protected? If IEBC disrespects the rights of Kigame, tomorrow it will disrespect the right of the candidates. Okay. Yeah. It will disrespect the right of the right honorable Raila Odinga and everybody else. So I think let us not give the courts timelines, but we know ordinarily the courts are very reasonable. And that is why in this particular judgment, the judge was quite cautious not to mandate the IEBC to include him on the ballot paper. Okay. The judge has requested IEBC to reconsider his papers, to relook at his paper, because he's a person who comes from the special group, and that is the kind of consideration the judge was paying keen attention to. He was trying to protect the rights and interests of a certain person from a minority group. And most importantly, Trevor, IEBC has exercised its right. The courts are very reasonable. Let's see the outcome of that particular Court of Appeal process, and I hope the course of justice shall not be diverted in any way to the prejudice of Kenya.
All right, let's see what you're saying online here. Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. This is the state of the nation, so we're touching on various topics. When the next one we're coming through is right down the alley.